The Rams lose a player on their special teams. He gets poached from an NFC West rival. Do the Rams have a leadership problem? And how the Rams can still put themselves in the best position to win the Super Bowl. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramily, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so if you haven't yet, do us a huge favor. Give us the gift of you subscribing, hitting the like button, dropping a comment down below. Join the Everyday Listeners Club, writing us a review on the podcast. We'll read on the show. So definitely do all that great stuff. And also, my name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. I've covered LA sports for over a decade, 24/7 sports, Bleacher Report, SI, Dodgers Nation. And as always, I'm joined by the Rams pre-half and post-game show host for the Rams flagship radio station, ESPN 710 LA. He's in his 11th season covering your Los Angeles Rams, the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. You can follow him on X at Travis Rogers. And on today's episode, something that the Rams have done this year that bodes well for their Super Bowl chances. Also, we're going to look at some more paths to putting the Rams in the best position to get to the Super Bowl. A Rams special teams player was poached by another team. And also, the refs released a picture that backed up their call against the Rams. All that more coming up next. But first, today's episode of Locked On Rams is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Okay, so Travis, anytime there's some roster moves, players getting poached, we kind of have to start with that. People are interested in that for sure. So Joshua Carty will not be returning to the Rams anytime soon. The Arizona Cardinals have officially signed Joshua Carty off of their practice squad. And we know that this is pretty interesting when you consider the fact that the Rams used the 2024 6th-round pick on Joshua Carty coming out of Stanford. A lot of hype around him. If you are an Arizona Cardinals fan, this kind of Christmas presents like kind of getting socks, right, or underwear. You know, it's like it's not the Red Ryder BB gun or anything like that if you're an Arizona Cardinal fan. So sorry, Clancy, you can take our backup bust of a kicker.
It didn't work, right? They tried to fix their kicking problem through the draft. They went out and took a guy that was a good college kicker and was temporarily a pretty successful NFL kicker. And then he lost his mojo. And I think this is just pretty normal for kickers. Kickers are like relief pitchers. They're like goalies in hockey. They're good until they're not. And then they got to go somewhere else. And Josh Carty may end up being a pretty good kicker for the Cardinals. Time will tell. The Rams are going to see him in week 18. I mean, it would be rather ironic if all of a sudden he bangs out a long field goal to beat the Rams in the last week of the season. But this is the way that kickers go. Unless you have one of the really, really, really good ones, guys that are good year after year after year, you're going to cycle through these guys really quickly. It's just the nature of the position. And I hope the guy does all right. He seems like a nice enough guy, but he missed too many kicks. The special teams are the special teams are the reason that this team is in the position that they are, because of Philadelphia, because of San Francisco, because of Seattle. Their special teams units have been terrible. That's why Chase Blackburn is looking for new work, because they could not get that unit on their team squared away.
That's right. I think I did the Chase Blackburn You're Fired episode solo. I mean, this is a reason to celebrate, really, when you think about it.
Quite honestly, Doug, it's so weird to me that, because look, you're in the bag for McVay. I'm in the bag for McVay. I think anybody that's an everydayer here at Locked On Rams is probably pretty darn thrilled that Sean McVay is the coach of the team that we all root for. So that's exciting. But I just, for the life of me, don't understand why he let that go on as long as he did. It was so unlike him to let a problem that was clearly a problem, that was getting worse instead of better, and let it sit there and sit there and sit there and sit there. It cost them 3 games. They have 4 losses, and 3 of them are directly related to their special teams failures. And, when's the last time you saw a team that was 11-4 can a coach in week 16 of the season, or 17, I guess, week 17 of the season? And it just doesn't go like that. They should have canned him after the Niner game. That was the spot to do it. They couldn't get it figured out. They did some, they changed the long snapper, they changed the kicker, these sort of things. But it wasn't just making and missing kicks. It was the way it was blocked. It was the way that they cover kicks. It was the way they cover punts. They haven't had an explosive play in their return game really all season long. It's just, this was a problem, and it went on way too long.
Absolutely. There's no doubt about that I see people criticizing Sean McVay, saying lack of leadership and this and that. I think this was a lapse of judgment. And so hopefully this is something that he learns from. I mean, I love to live by the phrase, what must be done eventually should be done immediately. And when everyone knows that they should have moved on from Chase Blackburn, but you don't want to make that move because that's not something you do. I mean, this is the first time he has fired an assistant during the season. I think that he'll learn from this, that sometimes you just got to pull the plug. And the truth is, does bringing in a new special teams coordinator that was already on the team, does that change the personnel, right? Ben Kotikwa. I mean, I don't know, right? I mean, but the truth of the matter is he has. I mean, if you look at his background, what he did with Denver, I mean, he was one of the better. That was one of the better units. When you read the resume, when you see his accomplishments, he's got a military background, so there's a discipline that he has. I mean, I rewatched that punt return for a touchdown from Rashid Shaheed. And Darion Kendrick was terrible. He was bad. He was nowhere near him. And the reason why he got released from the Seahawks, if you look back at it, there was some complaints with his effort level on similar plays. So it kind of makes you scratch your head. Look, the thing about the NFL is this. It's like with the salary cap, with teams basically essentially being penalized for drafting well, you're guaranteed to have weaknesses in some areas.
Yeah.
But with special teams, that is a group where you're not going to bring in guys and pay them big money to play special teams, right? So special teams can be very culture related. It can be a way that, hey, this is how we do things here. And as you said, if you have at least mediocre special teams, this is at worst a 2-loss team at this point. The best regular season Rams history, 2001, 14-2, greatest show on turf. That's the conversation we'd probably be having today. Is this the greatest Rams football team ever? Instead, it's, how do we get the 1 seed? How do we stay the 5th seed? Did we lose home field advantage? What does it look like to go through the playoffs without a top seed? So that's kind of the position they're in.
Yeah, it is. And I like what you say. Anything that needs to be done eventually should be done immediately. But I respect Sean McVay's loyalty. I think it's an incredible trait to have to people. I think that you want to give everybody a chance to work their way out of the problem, to try to fix it on their own, to let people sink or swim on their own merits. But this was the next step beyond that. This was the problem where you're costing us games. It would be one thing if it was not working out, but you were able to somehow, navigate your way through it to where you were still winning the games that you needed to win. But it kept costing them games. And quite frankly, that loss on Thursday night against Seattle is very likely to knock them out of the division title, to knock them all the way down to 3rd place, to knock them into that 5th or 6th seed. Instead of being home the entire time, they're going to have to go on the road virtually the entire time. And this was a problem that could have been addressed months ago, and they just chose not to do it for understandable reasons, but that almost doesn't matter, that they let it happen as long as they did, and here we are.
There's no excuse. There really isn't, and they have to live with the result right now. There is something to feel pretty optimistic about, though, when you look at kind of what the Rams have accomplished this season, because the Rams fit this pattern of teams that have won the last 9 Super Bowls, and that is have a team that is top 10 defensively, top 10 offensively, and that is the recipe for success. And if you look at this season, the Rams offensively, 2nd best team, defensively, 3rd best team. Now that's for the entire season. Are the Rams the 3rd best defensive team in the NFL right now? I think that's going to be tough to say, right?
Not even close. Look at what Carolina did to him. Look at what Seattle did to him. Look, Detroit scored 34 points, right? Yeah. The one game they've won in their last 3 was a team that put up 34. It's not like, 14. 34 is usually you're going to win just about every time. It's that the Rams offense has been otherworldly. Matthew Stafford operating at an MVP level. Puka Nacua operating at a best in his position level. Devontae Adams, obviously, before he got hurt, was a big difference maker. That triple tight end, 2 running backs. They've got an incredible offense, and that covers up for a lot of things. And I think the Rams defense is certainly good enough to make a run through the playoffs, but it has to be better than it's been over the last, month or so.
They have to. And look, hopefully this is where you rally the troops, you dig deep, and you use this as fuel. We've kind of talked about that all season. I hate that a team that's this talented, that's had this successful of a season, has put themselves in this position. But, hey, they need a little bit of luck at this point. They need some other teams to do them some favors. And we're going to talk about those favors. And also, what do the power rankings still say about the Rams, even after the OT loss? I got some very surprising rankings, Travis, that should make us feel better about where the Rams stand heading into the last 2 games of the season. That's coming up next on this Christmas Eve edition of Locked On Rams.
Christmas Eve indeed. And even on Christmas Eve, this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. The holiday season is one of the best time for sports. We're talking bowl games, big basketball games, of course, playoff push-ups. I'm not doing any push-ups. Playoff pushes. It's all happening at once. And while we're all making choices every day, one of the most fun places to make the right call, you got it, Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the easiest way to get in on daily fantasy. You just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, lock in your lineup, and you're in the game. It's simple, it's fast, and it's available in 45 states, including here in California, Texas, Florida, Georgia, and a whole bunch of other places as well. And Prize Picks has added an extra layer of excitement to the holiday sports schedule. Creating a lineup is easy. It takes about a minute, and the app makes the whole process smooth and intuitive. And you can choose from a huge range of unique stats. We're talking fantasy score, field goals attempted, free throws made, turnovers, whatever you like to get in on, whatever fits your strategy. And the new Stacks feature lets you choose up to the same player 3 times in one lineup. More on a quarterback's yards, touchdowns, and rushing yards. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right.
And we're off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Also, big shout out to those everyday listeners out there watching and listening to every single episode of Locked On Rams. Cannot thank you enough. Now's to join that everyday listeners club. All you got to do is watch and listen to every single episode we drop Monday through Friday on the podcast, on YouTube, and then you won't miss a thing about your Los Angeles Rams. All right, Travis, here in our second segment, I don't know, power rankings are kind of fun. I read them when I think my teams are going to get high rankings, and then I read them when I'm in fear that we're going to get dropped after a bad loss, right? Like that's kind of where I'm at. So I'm not the most obsessed. I'd probably give myself maybe like out of 10, a 9.5 out of 10 in so power rankings obsession. If you were
power ranking your feelings on power rankings, you would be in the top 10.
Yeah, there you go. A little power ranking inception there. It kind of blew my mind. I don't know what to think at this point, but yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. So, but I want to get your take on this because this surprised me a little bit. And this is first when I saw this list, I kind of went back and I was like, was this before the brutal loss in overtime to the Seahawks? But turns out that the answer is no. This is after. This is post brutal Seahawks worst loss in the McVay era loss. USA Today still has the Rams at #1. ESPN has the Rams at #2. The Athletic has the Rams at #2. Yahoo Sports #2. Fox Sports, there's some haters, #4. Sports Illustrated #1. Bleacher Report #3. So that is pretty surprising to me. I thought there would be, when you look at the 1 seed, I guess it's not about okay, look what this future entails for this team. It's kind of where they feel they are right now. But I still think it's a good reminder of just how good, how talented this Rams team. And if any team had a matchup with these guys, they would not like that matchup.
No, I think that's it right there. I think it's two things. It's number one, who's better? And I don't think the answer is obvious, right? Now, you can make a case, quite frankly, for San Francisco. You can make a case for Seattle. You can make a case, maybe if you wanted to put Chicago in there and get creative, or Denver or New England or whoever. There are some other teams in there, but it's not clear cut. We don't have a Kansas City Chiefs from the last few years. There isn't a New England Patriots in the Tom Brady, Bill Belichick era where one team is way better than everyone else. The Rams are one of 5 teams or so that you can make a compelling case for being the best team in the league. They're the way that they play is going to travel. I know we've talked a lot about this and the fact that we wanted them to stay at SoFi, and obviously you'd want to be at home rather than go on the road. But the Rams, stylistically, they can play in the cold. We saw them do it last year in Philadelphia. We saw them actually have a great deal of success. Matthew Stafford will be fine. They have 2 really good running backs. Puka Nacua is a bleeping battering ram. He's going to go through anybody in any weather. So they're capable of doing that. I think the question that we have is what we talked about a second ago. Can they make kicks? Can they do the things that the little things that you need to do? But I'm not surprised that they're still there. Last I looked, FanDuel still has them on top as far as the odds go to win the Super Bowl. They have the shortest odds to win the whole thing. So they're a really good team. Think about this. If they cover that punt, we're having a totally different conversation. We're literally talking about one play where if they cover that punt, if that whack 2-point conversion doesn't get overturned and called, we're having a different conversation. This is a team that would be 12-3 with 2 layups coming up. They're going to be 14-3, the number 1 seed with a bullet, and we'd be feeling really good about it. The way that the second half of that fourth quarter went changed a lot of the feelings, but it didn't change who they are as a football team. I still think that I'm not going to say they're the best team, but they're one of the best teams, and that's really the best you can hope for at this point.
Absolutely. And hey, in the words of the great Vin Scully, in the history of the Los Angeles Dodgers franchise, nothing comes easy. So there's your Dodgers reference, but I think that applies to a lot of different LA teams, right? They choose the most difficult path, it seems, at times. Look at the last Dodgers. I mean, they had to go on the road the entire postseason. You had to win 2 extra wild card games. You won Game 7 on the road. So, hey, LA is a city of champions. They're not afraid to go on the road and make things happen. But I do think that everyone's so caught up in getting the 1 seed. And trust me, I mean, we talked about on this show the difference between, hey, you win 2 home games against the matchups that you're going to be playing difficult teams, but it'll be in your favor as far as what's left to get to the Super Bowl. We know Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford's success at SoFi Stadium. We know all that, but I think that not enough focus is on how they can get the 2 seed and just kind of getting a wild card home game at SoFi Stadium, because then if you have some upsets, maybe you can host another game. There's always a world where that happens. To host a wild card round game at SoFi Stadium, you got to be the 2 seed. Talked a little bit about it before the show. To be the 2 seed, you need the 49ers to lose to the Bears, the Seahawks to lose to either the 49ers or the Panthers. Then if the Bears do find a way to beat the Lions, which, hey, the Bears are kind of hot. They got the mojo. Lions have a 7% chance of making the playoffs. I do have Amon-Ra St. Brown on my fantasy championship. I need him to ball out, so there's that. But they'll be the 2 seed since the Bears hold the tiebreaker over us on the conference record. So if the Bears lose to the Lions or the 49ers, then we'd be the 1 seed. So, look, the best way to think about it is the 49ers and the Seahawks, they drop a game. And you're in a better spot. The 49ers, Bears, and Seattle, they drop a game. So you win out, you get the 5 seed. So if we drop a game, you're 6 seed, right? So, I mean, that's just kind of how that plays out. So there is value in saying, okay, let's at least get 1 home playoff game in the wild card round.
Especially if you can pick off one of those other teams in your own division, right? Like if you have to go to San Francisco, if you have to go to Seattle and play one of those teams, then that's a far more challenging task than having them in your own building. Division games are always hard. Sometimes the difference is being at home rather than being on the road. You know, Philadelphia is one of those teams that we've just seen so many times, and the Rams have struggled to beat them. We know they had to, like you're right there earlier this season. So that one's a little bit different. But yeah, I mean, you'd much rather be at home than not. And you mentioned this a couple of times. Last year, they were 1 play away from getting the NFC Championship game at home. The year they won the Super Bowl, they went into it as the 4 seed. They played the NFC Championship game at home. So this is not an impossible task. Things happen. The playoffs are weird. There's always upsets in the playoffs. So they certainly, are likely to have to go through a more difficult path, but not impossible. Weird blank happens every single year in January.
Weird stuff happens. It certainly does. It's funny how quickly the mood changes, because I was midway through that fourth quarter. It felt like a little bit of a coronation game for the Rams, proving, hey, this team is as good as everyone thinks they are. I felt like I was going to the door and I was opening up my mail, and inside the mail was going to be a number 1 seed, home field advance throughout the playoffs ticket, but instead it was a subscription to the Jelly of the Month Club, right? I mean, I felt like I was Clark Griswold there, Travis. It was killing me.
The Jelly of the Month Club, I never understood why he was. I mean, I get it. He wanted to put the pool in. He wanted the bonus, all of those things. But I'd like to get a jelly delivered to my house every month. That sounds pretty cool.
You know what? It's crazy. Since I told you about my Costco membership, I had that. The jelly I have, it was like lasted that. It was this big, and I was like, "Hey, man, this will last for like 4 years." Sure enough, it's pretty much the same. It was like a couple of weeks.
You go through it. Jelly's delicious. Who doesn't want to put a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? You can put it on a bunch of stuff.
Okay, here's a good question for you. Ratio-wise, peanut butter to jelly on the peanut butter sandwich.
Yeah. It's like a 3-to-1 peanut butter to jelly, maybe even closer to 4-to-1. I like a good helping of peanut butter and a light coating of jelly. I don't need a ton of jelly on that. I'm more there for the peanut butter, just a little jelly to give you that salty sweet bite. That's
solid. Yeah, so basically 70-30-ish ratio.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah, I'm more like I'm like a 90-10 peanut butter. Like I like to wonder if like there's jelly on it. You know what I mean? Because if you put the jelly, my daughter's the one that eats the jelly, but like because if you put too much, you bite into it, it gets all over. You know what I mean? Like it
it slides. It doesn't like you need the peanut butter is what gives you your grip, right? It's like the friction in the sandwich. The jelly will just have a hot mess on your hands.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, that's the chemistry right there. But coming up next, peanut butter and jelly go together like Sean McVay in leadership. Who is the leader of this Rams team? Do they have a leadership problem? That's coming up next on Locked On Rams. And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams. Welcome back to Locked On Rams. And here in our third segment, Travis, there is this conversation that I'm seeing all over Rams land after that loss, after the Puka Nacua situation, after the fact that it feels like maybe sometimes the Rams lose focus during games, like they take their foot off the gas in the fourth quarter, that maybe the Rams have a leadership problem. Now, we can't say enough how much we love having Sean McVay and respect him as the coach of the Rams, and we speak so highly of him, rightfully so. We're not going out on a limb with that one, right? He deserves all the accolades and praise that he gets. But I think the more I think about this, team leadership and player leadership is different than a coach. We know that leadership starts from the top, but when you actually look at the guys on this team that should be the leaders, I want to start with the defensive side.
Sure.
Nate Landman, great voice, green dot guy leader, but does he have that stature in this league to get the ears of everyone on the field, right? Is he an Aaron Donald? Is he a Jalen Ramsey, right? Is he one of those guys? Mm-hmm. You look at Byron Young, Jared Verse, still young. I don't think that they have the experience and the years of production to warrant that too. Kobe Turner, I think, would be the best candidate to be that guy, but there is no tried and true, I made 5 Pro Bowls, I've won a Super Bowl type veteran. I mean, we think about it too. Like Quentin Lake is a potential leader. No guarantee he's going to be even here next year, right? So I think that's kind of, we'll start with the defensive side. Just kind of interested to hear what you have to say about that.
I think you're spot on. And I love the guys that you brought up, because think about, if Aaron Donald were here, we're not having this conversation. If Jalen Ramsey were here, we're not having this conversation. What do those two guys have in common that Nate Landman does not, that Quentin Lake, who I do think is a good leader, does not? Those guys were the best player on the team. Aaron Donald was the best player on the team and certainly the best player on that side of the ball. Aaron Donald, as it turns out, was the best player in the whole blank in the league. But Jalen Ramsey could look around and say, I'm the best guy on this team. And no one's looking at him like he's crazy. your best players are going to set the tone. Your best players are going to be the guys that lead. Nate Landman has had an incredible season. He's not the best player on that defense. The best player on that defense is Jared Verse. Jared Verse is in his second year. Jared Verse is still, I don't want to say he's green because I don't think that's true, but he's still learning to play in the league, and he's still learning how to lead the other guys on the team. Chris Shula, the defensive coordinator, is a pretty soft-spoken guy. He's not a fiery guy that's going to be yelling and screaming and doing what, some of these guys do. So I do think a leadership void may be too strong, but I think that it's one of those things that your best guys are still learning their way in this league. I think Turner is the guy that could be most likely to step into it because he's very good. He's been around. Anybody that's heard him interviewed, he's really smart. He's really well respected. So I think he has an opportunity to do it, but it's always going to default to your best guys, and their best guy is Jared Verse.
Exactly. And when you say that their best guy is Jared Verse in his second year, where, is he a guy that still has that ceiling? I think all pro level defensive player of the year ceiling, yes, but it's not like your people are talking about him like they used to talk about Aaron Donald or some of these stars. And I think the fact that we're having this conversation, Travis, means it's a worthwhile topic. And I'll tell you why. If we had this conversation 2 years ago, who's the leader of the Rams defense? Aaron Donald, next topic, right? Jalen Ramsey, next topic, right? It's a one-word answer. So the fact that we can even have this conversation kind of tells you that, hey, look, but it's not like it's the Rams' fault. I mean, part of the reason why they're in the position they're in is because they've drafted so well and they've developed so well, and you can't pay every position. They have one of the least expensive defenses in the league, and when you have inexperience, it means you don't have that many established veterans. So I think that's kind of the push and pull of it all. And why you kind of, I wouldn't say that this run they're on is like house money or found money or anything like that. But I think if anyone told you they'd be where they are a couple of years ago with the roster that they had, you'd be like, wow, that's pretty surprising. You would think that they were in a full rebuild. Instead, they're competing for a title. But I think with that, hey, you don't really have those guys on that side of the football.
I think Verse will get there because he's awesome. And he works hard, and he plays hard, and he's fierce. I just think you have to grow into that role of leadership. I think it's coming. It's just probably not quite here yet at the level that we're talking about with a Ramsey or a Donald, which is just, those guys are Hall of Famers. That's just that is a different threshold. And I'm glad you started on the defense, Doug, because I think the offense is what we would have talked about with the defense with Aaron Donald. It's Matthew Stafford, and we're done. Right? A, it's always going to be the quarterback. And B, it's really going to be the quarterback when the quarterback is likely to end up in the Hall of Fame. He's on an MVP push. He's got 17 years in the league. The dude's tough as nails. He shows up every single week. And then he and the coach are like this when it comes together as far as understanding the game. And then on that side of the ball too, McVay is this dynamo of energy and enthusiasm and intellect. And of course he's going to lead, and he's an offensive-oriented guy. The defense doesn't have that over there, or at least they don't have it, as obviously as they do on offense. So and again, this is why when we talk about this so often is we always go to the offense first, because we know how that piece operates a little bit differently than the defensive piece, where 1 week it's Jared Verse, another week it's Landman, another week it's Kobe Turner, or all of a sudden Kill Witherspoon steps up in a big way. It's kind of all over the map. It's never all over the map on the offensive side.
And isn't it funny, though, that even though Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford, even you go to Devontae Adams, right? I mean, he's going to get the respect of everyone. It's that side of the football that had Puka Nacua acting out the way that he did, going live in the locker room and saying, I'm not going to turn this thing off. But here's the funny thing, though. I start to think about this, and I'm like, dude, like if they just had, to tie it in the beginning of the show, if they just had adequate special teams, we would not be talking about this, because you don't talk about lack of leadership on a team with 2 losses or 1 loss, right?
None of it. It all comes back to that. Make your kicks, cover your kicks, block for your kicks. And we're talking about, like you said, D-Mac, at the beginning, is this the best Rams team of all time? I mean, not now, it's not, but it certainly had a chance to be, in retrospect, because we're talking about kicks. I mean, we're not talking about, hey, we need a quarterback, or we need somebody that, we need a game-breaking wide receiver. All of the things that you need to be able to have a quarterback, protect the quarterback, hit the quarterback, and catch the ball. They've got all those things. But what they don't have is a guy that makes kicks.
Yeah, for sure. And lastly here, I don't know if you saw this, Ernest Jones said after the game that members of the Rams defense were laughing when they were up 30-14. I mean, come on, man. I don't even know like that's who knows like what he saw, right? I don't buy that as an issue, right?
I don't either. I think that's one of those things. Like somebody looks over there and you see somebody laughing, and you're going to put your own story behind it. The backstory could be nothing other than a guy, burped in the huddle or something like that, and they thought it was funny. Nobody's laughing at anybody in the NFL. The league's too hard. It's too dangerous. Guys do. Look, Michael Jordan used to make stuff up too, right? Just to get himself going. Guys make
Bradford Smith, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I mean that sounds like that's jealous ex-girlfriend energy from Ernest Jones. Okay, let's just call that what it is. But that's gonna do it for this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMac_LA. And you follow the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers at Travis Rogers. And we'll be here tomorrow. Travis, he just knocked out the crossover to get into the Falcons game. We got content for you Monday through Friday, Christmas week, whatever week it is, 24/7, 365. We are Locked On Rams. I guess not 365, but like not the weekends.
Minus 52 or 104 or whatever that is. You know
it doesn't sound as good, but we'll get the number for you for sure. But have a Merry Christmas, everyone. And until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.